Hello, everybody. Welcome to the pig session. It's marvellous to see so many faces here today. So I'm Hannah Thorogood. I'm the East Midlands Regional Facilitator for Pasture for Life, and I'm a farmer in Lincolnshire. But I don't have pigs. I'm just here just to support these three amazing pig farmers. So you're here today as part of history. We're making history because it's the first pig session ever at Groundswell. So well done, everyone. Very exciting. And we're really, really lucky here today to have three proper rock stars of Regenerative, as I like to say. So we've got Fred and we've got Amy and we've got Flav, and they're going to go through and introduce their systems, introduce themselves, and hopefully you can all see the screens because we've got some really lovely photos as well that they've all put up. So we're going to hear from each of them. There might be a few questions from me, and then we'll throw it out to you lot for questions as well. So think of some good questions, I'm sure. So Fred, are you happy to go? Yeah? Go for it. Brilliant. Thanks, Fred.
Hi, everyone. My name's Fred, and I'm a farmer in Bridgewater, Somerset, and I farm with my sister and my brother-in-law who run the butchery on the farm, and my friend Rosie has a bakery, Phil Bakery, at the farm. And this year we were joined by my friend Jess, who finishes 60 or so beef cattle on the farm. So it's a nice little ecosystem of people, and there's a huge amount of value in that. It's a very different farm to the one I took on in 2007. The nuts and bolts of the... Oh, thank you, yeah. The nuts and bolts of the farm is 150 hectares, and we've been farming without any inputs, but uncertified since 2018. We have a 5-year crop rotation, 3 years of herbal lays, followed by a year of milling wheat, followed by an intercrop of oats, peas and barley, which is predominantly the pig feed. April till October, the pigs are on the herbal lays, grazing with an attempted 30 to 40 day rest period. And then between November and March, they're on the gaps in our arable system. And one of the kind of core values of the pig system that we run is we try and feed only what we grow, which is the oats, peas and barley with some fava beans topped up, and some wheat feed from the milling process. As a rough rule of thumb, we feed about 220 tonnes of feed a year, which when you work back from that is probably a feed conversion of maybe even 5 to 1, at best 4 to 1, which is probably double what you get in an intensive indoor system. Is that right, Flav? About double. But we run 3 groups of 6 sows, and every 2 months we're trying to wean about 65 pigs. So trying to finish between 350 and 400 a year. At about 85 kilos, we start killing the group at about 85 kilos and finish at 100 kilos dead weight. And the last 6 to 8 months, so the last 2 months, so between 6 months old and 8 months, we actually have a straw-based system in a roundhouse. And the 3 markets are a kind of wholesale, whole carcass market. We sell for £3.70 a kilo dead weight, so a pig's roughly 300 quid plus. Then a wholesale butchered market, business to business, which is probably makes the pig about 600 quid. And then this is like fag packet economics, isn't it? And then this is why I still wake up at night looking at the bank account. And then the last market is a retail, direct to consumer, either online or farmers markets. And the value of the pig there to us becomes about 900 quid. But it's kind of easy to get wrapped up. I'm conscious that we're talking about our systems and there's a lot of detail, but it's easy to get wrapped up in that detail and forget some of the kind of bigger framings of the decisions we make on farm. And so that's okay. Still yabbering on about this one. Don't panic. When we get to like 20 minutes. So it's easy to get wrapped up in the detail. And actually there's some bigger kind of systems things that I'd like to touch on and how pigs fit into regenerative systems. And the first one is the food system. You know, if you don't think about what kind of food system you're integrated in, then how empowered are you on your farm to make small decisions about daily practices? Not very empowered. And what you see in these images is our food system. So on the left is Rosie's bakery customers, who now are our pork customers. Rosie there with the standing on the straw bales next to me in the middle is Million Down at White Ladies Farmers Market in Bristol, and then one of the farm walks on the right hand side. And what I'm trying to communicate with these images is that we have a very human-centric, people-centric food system, and the importance of that is that you're connected to your consumer, your customer. And by being connected, you can communicate value in a very simple way, which is through stories and through relationships, through trust. And by doing that, you kind of sidestep this commodity trap where you don't control your price, and it's a minimum standard, maximum yield, maximum scale logics, and there's no way you can escape them. So now just reflecting on some of the big changes, really, for me over 20 years of farming. And with the benefit of hindsight, I think there's two big changes to me as a person, and they're manifested on the farm, in the rotation and the system. And the first is about feeling part of the farm rather than trying to impose myself on it. And a good example with the pigs is this connection between the breed and the feed. So you see there are feed crops in the top left. That's our oats, peas and barley intercrop. Then ready at harvest, which is a nice image. You kind of see the layers of diversity and how it's complementary. And when we started doing that, I felt like I was printing money for a minute, because we stopped writing checks to 4 farmers and started keeping the currency on farm. And then the growth rates declined and the food conversion ratio declined without the soya in the diet, and the carcass quality declined. And we could have just responded by getting some liquid lysine or, the kind of sticking plaster approach. But actually, there's part of feeling part of the system is feeling for kind of natural systems and mimicking those systems. And the easiest way as a livestock producer is your breeding. So we moved away from a purebred Tamworth herd, and we run 25% Tamworth, 25% large black, which are rare breed, high quality. And then we use a Duroc at 25% and Saddleback 25% for kind of more vigorous productive characteristics. And we didn't quite get back to where we were with the soy-based diet, but I'd say we split the difference. So whereas we were finishing 100 kilos in 8 months, and it went down to kind of finishing 80 kilos in 12 months, we've now split the difference and we finish 80 kilos in 8 months. I'm not sure what the maths is, but it feels about halfway between. But yeah, what I'm saying is, it's about feeling part of the system and making long-term decisions and more difficult choices and finding that kind of balance. Oh, this is something that I'm really most proud of, and it's completely accidental. There was no planning involved in this. What you see in these images is kind of the life cycle of a field in our rotation. So 3 years of the lay on the left, so we're grazing the herbal lay, and observe the grasses are all quite mature, and that's what you get from the rest periods rather than set stocking in area. And the impact of the rest periods, completely by accident, is that we were filling our soils with all of the seeds from the herbal lay. So clovers, plantains, grasses. And so in the middle picture is one of our arable fields after harvest. And you can see all of those seeds have just germinated under the annual arable crop and are just sort of waiting to explode in September, October, November. And then on the right is the same field in October or November, and some of our sows grazing. And that's a completely free cover crop. And it's also a mixture of perennial species, so they don't cause us weed problems within our annual rotation. So it's this idea about productivity of natural ecosystems, which I kind of... I don't know why I'm surprised about, because they're the most resilient, productive kind of systems that you can get. But it's a nice example of it. And also of just generally how different my farming is now to when I started, which is we're now engaged in really positive cycles of practice and response and learning. And when you actually do something natural, you generally get a positive response, and then you can feed off that and head in that direction. It's a totally different mentality of farming. Sticking with the theme of productivity, the sausage roll. So a whole slide dedicated to sausage rolls. But this is what I really want to explore, is what is efficient, faced with the kind of polycrisis of climate and ecological catastrophe, which is half of my kind of paralyzing life, I think. I feel like we're presented, when you read the farming press and maybe some of the stands even at Groundswell, with technological fixes, new machines, new innovations, new varieties, wonder crops, silver bullets. And, I ask myself the question, are they actually solutions, or are they just reinventions of the same system? And therefore, they bring with them the same problems, the same power dynamics. And are we kind of on this hamster wheel? And I say that productivity and efficiency can be different. It can be small and beautiful and connected. And the sausage roll embodies it. One example of that for me. It's not kind of shiny, corporate and techie. And why is it efficient? Well, it's because we're a small connected system. All the different people in this kind of supply network can bounce off each other and do really agile things. So in Rosie's pastry and the sausage roll, 15% of that is wheat feed that goes back in the pig diet. That feeds the pigs. The pigs go to Dan, and Rosie sells the sausage meat and the sausage roll. I just think, how would a big, shiny corporate food system do something like that? And I don't know, just a nudge to think about efficiency in different ways, and that's part of regenerative. Right, last slide. I think we've all got a slide like this, or you've just played a nasty trick on me. So this, thanks, mate. This is sort of Instagram reality slide, which I think is important, because with social media, which we all use to the benefit of our businesses, it's easy to tell a particular story. I certainly do. If you look through my Instagram, you don't see pictures like those of me in the winter in muddy, shitty areas. You see photos of me under blue sky with long grass and beautiful pastured pigs. And the point I'm trying to make is, what are the challenges? Let's have level up and be honest about integrating pigs into regenerative systems. The biggest challenge is the winter, especially the winter we've just had. Amy and I are in the southwest, which is a wet area anyway, probably 1,200 mil of rain. Well, we had 1,100 mil of rain between October and March this year. It was brutal, wasn't it? Testing. And so starting again, I was thinking, well, imagine if I could shift consumer behavior to really embrace seasonality of pork production. So we carry just breeding stock over winter and finish more in the summer. These are the kind of questions I would ask myself to solve that problem, because we are in the southwest and I can't change the weather. And then just a nod to scale. Scale's one of those irresistible economic logics of the old system. And I look at our farming system and I see how I've employed it to solve problems, and it always makes you move further away from your values. So you see there with the tractor, with the roundhouse, at the moment pigs get finished 6 to 8 months old inside on straw. It's the most capital intensive part of our system. It's where all of our problems are. When I'm walking around the farm with groups, it's the thing that I'm most sort of self-conscious about, and it's because we've got too big with the farming system. And so to relieve pressure over winter, we take our biggest animals and finish them inside. So if I was starting again, would I think about scale? Would I have that part of our system? 100% not. And it's something I'm really excited about redesigning over the next few years, how we change how we use that space. And then 3 other things. So first of all, a comment, there's Jess in the middle there with her cows. There's just this elegant simplicity to Jess's system. And she rocks out with her dog. She drives up to the top of the field. She reels back some electric. The cows go through. She does this every day. She tips over the drinker, drags the poly pipe and the drinker through. And it's just so elegant and simple. And I look at our pig system and I look at all the stuff we've got and the tractors we need and all the milling equipment. And so that's just to kind of think about that. Simplicity is key, I think, in regenerative systems. And then the bottom left is one of our sows farrowing outside. Our sows stay in big groups all year round, farrowing on the last one, farrowing. And there's so many reasons why we shouldn't have done that. Cross-fostering, spreading of litter sizes, I can't think of the problems I imagined before we were doing it. And the point is, make your own rules. The things you read about nutrition and management, they basically have been designed around a different set of logics, economic logics. So if you change those, you can actually make your own rules on the farm to suit yourself. And then generally, last thing I'm going to say, sorry, I've been talking for a long time, is, it's so easy. I've been in the audience of some amazing sessions, and you kind of want to note down all the specific details of what someone's sharing their personal experiences of a particular problem. And it's easy to get wrapped up in the detail and then try and take that and copy it like a blueprint at home. And the point about regenerative is like for pigs at least, I would just encourage you to not take away what we're saying as a blueprint and more think about how pigs fit into your system. That's the last thing I'd like to say. Thank you so much for listening to me. Over to you, Amy.
That's great. Really good. Thanks, Fred. I think what you display so nicely is the fact that you've got so many people working on the farm on so many different enterprises. Can you just say how big is the farm and how many people are working there with the different enterprises?
So fully supported by the farmers, myself and my sister and brother-in-law, and Jess has cows in different locations, but Jess and Rosie's business as well. So yeah,
it's so good, and I think that's such an inspiring thing that so many of us can do. That to stack in those enterprises and stack in those multi-livelihoods, whether it's full-time, part-time, micro, it's really really good going. So nice, thanks, Fred. You ready, Amy? Go for it.
Hello, I'm Amy Chapple. I farm at Redwoods Farm with my parents in Devon. Talking about stacking enterprises, I was actually told the farm wasn't big enough to support me as well. But during lockdown, I was stuck at home and I was like, let's get pigs. So I did, and it's kind of built up. Now I'm up to finishing about 200 pigs a year for three main outlets. And then I'm doing some direct sales, farmers markets and things as well. So this is kind of typically what it looks like spring, summer. I mean, there's maybe a few more dock leaves than that this year after this winter. But so basically just trying to get as much growth as possible in the system and trying to keep shade from the actual pasture itself for the pigs. Like Fred was talking about, simplicity. So my shelters are very, very simple. I just attach them and drive forwards, moving the pigs every 3 to 10 days during the summer. So it needs to be easily movable. The water I can just move by hand. I've keep some sows in the wood through the summer and just single strand, just move them on. Keep it as simple as possible. And so I also do a soy-free feed, which is made from ingredients from local farms. And I don't think that would work if they weren't in an outdoor setting with a lot of pasture in front of them. I do have to do some inside through winter, and they get silage. Without silage, they just don't get the finish on them. They need the extra. Why is it? Okay. So winter is a very difficult time. This is the best system I've done so far. So the sort of top left, they came out of the one on the left and went into the one on the right. That's when they first went in. The one in the middle at the top was a week later in the same area. And at the bottom was after they'd been in the area for 3 weeks, and I moved them on. I also put in seed about 24 hours before I move them on. So they the pigs snuffle in the seed. They do eat a fair bit of it, but a lot of it still manages to grow. But I did find this winter, because the pigs hadn't dug the ground as much, the grass grew too well, and it basically swamped out all the seeds that we're trying to grow. So there's not as much diversity in the pasture this year, but there's still a huge amount of diversity compared to if you were just set stocking. So I use mostly large black, saddleback, and Gloucester Old Spot. I am no longer keen on pure breeds. Personally, I like crossing them, and you get really good mixes. And I've just had 6 sows from Fred, so I've got his 4-way cross piglets on the ground, which are looking really good. and it is chaos. There's like 50 piglets running around in just absolute chaos. But I do normally farrow all my sows in groups as well, but they tend to be everybody farrows within a week. Fred seemed to be like, let's take it to 4 week stretch, which, like, you know, it'll work out well in the end. But so also my sows, a lot of them farrow outside just because they've got shelters. They just like farrowing outside. So the one in the bottom middle, she made a really lovely nest in shelter, and then went back in the morning and she'd made a nest outside, and that evening it snowed. So I had to make up a sort of makeshift shelter to try and protect the piglets from the snow, because piglets and snow don't mix. So at about 4 weeks old, I moved the piglets to bigger pasture, like you can see on the top right. Then they're rotationally grazed with their mothers, moved every like week or two. And they eat a lot of pasture. I think if you can get them in that kind of setting as young as possible, get them eating as much grass as you can, that sets up their gut. It gets them ready for a lifetime of eating lots of grass. It helps massively with the feed conversion. And talking about feed conversion, when I wean them at 8 weeks, I put them onto fermented feed. It's the same feed as I feed everything, but it's fermented, and actually there's a really good feed conversion rate on that. It's about 2.5 to 1 at that point, which when they're needing more protein, when they're eating more, and that's the most important growth stage, then you need to get it into them. So I decided that fields can be over-pigged, however well you look after the field. So basically trying to introduce different animals into the field, trying to mix things a bit more, because I've not been entirely happy with pigs have seemed to have been their own kind of enterprise separately. So last year I put a couple of cull cows in, just with the pigs following the cows, just because I had too much grass. So the cows did a really great job. The pigs absolutely loved following them and rolling in all sorts of things. And then this year I've so the field on the right, I used pigs to plough that field, and then we put in peas and barley, and then just like had that as a whole crop silage, and then we put in herbal ley in the autumn, and it was grazed a few times with sheep through the winter, and then I had a demand for more pigs, and so a field that was intended to be for sheep and cattle is now a pig field again. So that's actually being grazed by pigs, but they're absolutely loving the herbal ley and doing really well on it. And so at the bottom is a small group of my laying hens, and they're just following the pigs. It's quite difficult to have laying hens following pigs because pigs make ruts, and driving trailers over bumpy ground is a little bit questionable. So I didn't screw you over. I made it look really bad. So the mud, obviously, I've learnt the hard way that you really, really need to know your fields really well with pigs. And there are some areas you simply cannot put pigs in winter. We've got a fair bit of clay on the farm, and we get even more rain than Fred. So it's really not the best piggy farm. But so the one at the bottom one is, I literally found out overnight that was not a good place to have pigs. And yeah, overnight it just turned to just soupy, horrible mud, which, yeah, they were moved out immediately, I will say, as soon as that happened. The other thing is escaping pigs, which I hear a lot of people talking about. Their pigs won't stay in. So the sheep farmer was not too impressed. I'm sure he's here somewhere. Yeah, he was not too impressed. This is why I now move piglets at 4 weeks old. Before 4 weeks old, they just go complete free ranging everywhere. They don't really make a lot of impact before then. But after 4 weeks, they do that. They dig quite a lot. And yeah, you don't get very happy neighbours or parents. So the other thing is breed. breed of pig is massively important. Because I feed it's essentially a lower protein. It's not, a complete exact feed like you would in a commercial setting. And so I decided I would get some Durocs and cross them and have a really lovely cross. And the Duroc did not like my feed and did not like being outside. And basically I got about this kind of level of fat. It was like the thinnest pig I've ever seen at the end of it. But it just shows how important which breed you choose is. And the other thing is holding your nerve with weeds. So relying on the pigs because they disturb the seed bank, they bring up the thistles, the dock leaves, the things that you don't necessarily want. But those things are actually doing a job. And over time, as long as you manage it well, they will disappear. But it's holding the nerve about trusting the process. And yeah, I think that's...
Great. Thanks, Amy. That's brilliant. Thank you. I remember speaking to you in Oxford, a real farming conference in January this year, and it felt like a bit of a mud kind of co-counselling session, wasn't it? Like, we're trying to be regenerative and my chickens are producing mud, your pigs are producing mud. It was quite traumatic, really, wasn't it? But I'm sure a lot of people were picked up on the fermented food thing, and I think that's really interesting. Would you mind just saying a little bit about how you do that process? How's your process of fermenting?
So basically I just... shove a load of food in a big barrel, cover it with water, with a little bit of water over the top so that it will stay under cover when it's soaked it all up. Leave it for a couple of days. You can smell that it's fermented. You can smell it's ready. My brother is feeding my pigs and he is not impressed that he has to feed that disgusting slop. But the pigs absolutely love it, and it, obviously does them really, really well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have thought he might like it because it smells quite beery, doesn't it?
Well, he's only a little chap. We don't like
He's
to think
got a bit of
of
stuff to learn.
things.
That's fine. Okay, great. Excellent. Thanks, Amy. Flav, you happy to go?
Hi, everyone. Can't believe there's this many people that want to hear about pigs, but here we are. I'm Flavian Obiero, and I'm a tenant farmer in Hampshire. I think it's good that I've gone last because these two have definitely done this type of pig farming longer than I have, and I'm currently just mixing between what Fred's doing and what Amy's doing, and trying to go away from my commercial days because we've got Tamworth pigs, or as I call them now, ginger ninjas, because they escape a lot. I went through a stage of counting daily how many days we had them in, and I gave up because I thought I'd sussed it. And I think 3 weeks ago I was butchering about 8 o'clock, and I got a phone call from my friend who was doing haylage for us, saying you've got 24 wieners on the road. My partner Nikki, who sat at the back there, she was at home with our little one now, trying to get 3 of them back in, and my mates just shoved 21 of them into the field, which I didn't want them to do that, but I was in there, so I was chasing pigs, I think at about midnight. Noah was asleep in the back of the truck. So yeah, that's why I call them ginger ninjas. And to go back to my going away from the commercial, is that we got a tenancy with the council last year. And in my head, or even in our business plan, we talked about buying gilts or commercial gilts, large white landrace, and starting a herd. But then after getting the farm, I got a sort of phone call from other tenants that were losing land, but they had 74 wiener to finishes, Tamworths, for I think it was 50 odd quid. And I looked at Nikki, I was like, why not? Let's just get them. I've always not liked traditional breeds, and I thought I've got to get these. And we got them, and then we later found out about this story about the Tamworth too. And yeah, it's been uphill since then. We've had them on the roundabout, we've had them on the railway line. They went to our neighbour's garden on his birthday, and Nicky rang me saying he's really pissed off because his garden is upside down after an hour. So talking about regen, pigs are very good tractors, especially if the ground is soft. So our system is, I'd say it's definitely not a complete system because we're about a year and 2 months in. So all the pigs we've got are inherited. Some have got pregnant unplanned, so we've had to deal with the piglets. We've got a few black ones there. Those are Tamworth Cross Saddleback. Again, a friend of mine messaged me saying, I've got 12 weaners. Do you want them? I was like, yeah. And I'm trying to go from a chaotic system to having a planned pig system that I've worked 10, 12 years in a sort of planned commercial setting. So having set weaning weeks, set farrowing weeks, having troughs rather than feeding them in barrels. So things like that for us are sort of a big step. And other things we do on the farm other than the pigs, we've got goats, we've got sheep, which we're trying to integrate with the pigs. We've got our neighbours' cattle, because one of our fields is quite worm-ridden. We lost about 10 sheep last year because the previous tenant used so much wormer that the worms are resistant. So we had to use, what's that orange one? Zolvix. We had to use, which is very expensive. So now having the cows there, I'm hoping that breaks a cycle. And when we put sheep back on there, or even pigs, we don't have that problem. And we also just finishing up a butchery on the farm. We've got a catering business, which we got 2 months in to get in the farm. And I think a point Fred mentioned earlier about sort of efficiency, food conversion, and what's the right age to do such and such. We're in a pastured pig group, WhatsApp group. And people always ask, what do you do when? And for me, I always struggle because going back to the commercial side, you always know you're doing this at 4 weeks, this at this set weeks, 6 months, they've got to go. Whereas at the moment, having an option to either sell direct or to sell through the hog roast, or in future when we get our cured meats enterprise to sell through charcuterie, any stage that pig is alive, I can make use of it. When it's in prime condition, as we say, or finish up, you can sell it directly or through the hog roast. If it's an old sow, like Fred, if you don't want any, we can turn them into salami. So I think the reason I like pigs a lot, and I think any of you that are thinking about getting pigs, get pigs and good fencing, is that a pig, you can use almost the whole animal. So where I do our own butchery, you get people asking you for pig's ears, whether to make gelatin or crackling. We get people that use the head, like there's restaurants in London that have a dish with the pig's head. People buy trotters. So I had one the other day. We took to the abattoir. I had about an inch of fat. I took 6 kilos of fat at frozen. So when I'm making salami later down the year with lean meat, I'll just use that again. So I think it's one of those animals that you can pretty much use everything in it. Legally, obviously, some things you can't use because of disease. And talking about mixing Fred's and Amy's system, so I'm trying to go fully outdoor because we don't have that many sheds, and I don't really want to be mucking out pigs because I don't enjoy it. I've done it for like over 10 years. I don't want to do it anymore. And the land we have on our farm has had probably 40 odd years of equine grazing. So it's like concrete. And some of the fields when we moved last summer, the pigs were on it for 3 months for them to actually get any impact because the summer was so dry. And what we saw over winter, some fields that would have lasted them 3 months because it was so hard, it was lasting 3 weeks because they were just going straight through it because the soil has no structure really. And what we're trying to do now is let them absolutely obliterate it and then reseed behind. So we've got 2 paddocks where I didn't reseed to see what comes up. Weeds, as Amy just said, there's hardly any grass, it's just weeds. And then the 3rd paddock, I reseeded with barley, wheat, and beans. And I think I left the pigs there too long because I've not seen much growth. I think things came up and they ate it. So I've learned from that. And then the 4th paddock, we put turnips in, and I saw some turnip seedlings come up. I messaged my friend James saying, is this what a turnip looks like? 'Cause I've never grown turnips before. And he said, yes, it is. And took the pigs off. So I'm hoping we're going to have turnips later in the year. And then I also bought seeds from Cotswold Seeds. So they do a pig mix, which is a year to 2 years. So I'm hoping as we go along throughout the years, we're going to get to a point where Amy is at now, where the pigs are actually going into a paddock, not to root it, but to eat what's on top, and then you move them on to the next one. We also have our pigs with soy-free diets. So I first trialed soy-free diets in 2017 whilst working in a commercial unit, and that cost £9 more to take soy out. So when Fred was talking about economy and whatever, when you're looking at a system, and most feed companies use like a least cost system. So you've got your nutrients that the pig needs at whatever stage you're in, and the software will pull in the ingredients that achieve that at the lowest cost. And obviously we know soy is probably the best ingredient, apart from plasma protein or blood protein. There's not many other plants that are better than soya. So when you take soya out, it becomes more expensive because you're pulling in things like sunflower, rapeseed meal, which are less, not as superior as soya, so you're having to use more of it. And I've found that when you've got no soya in a diet, your animals obviously grow a little bit slower, but where we're in a position where we're not being dictated to by anyone when to sell our pigs or what kilo to sell our pigs to, it's quite easy to do that in our position. And all our feed ingredients, aside from the rape meal extract, which we get from a feed mill, come from 3 miles away. So back to Fred's point about the community, I'm working with fellow tenants every other 2 months to make our pig feed, which I think when first time I heard about Groundswell talking about regen, a lot of people almost assume monogastric can never be done in a sustainable way. But I think for us, when you've got feed being grown less than 3 miles away, you're not using soya. We come unstuck when it comes to going to the abattoir, which is an hour and a half away, which I can't control. Hopefully the government will work with us one day. We're doing as much as we can to get it all done on the farm. If I had enough hours in the day, I'd happily slaughter on farm, but I don't think I've got enough time to do all that, all those things, so having to rely on abattoirs. On screen there are goats, which I've noticed that if I know I take them to fields that have a lot of grass, they seem to be wanting to go back to the paddocks where the pigs have been. I don't know what is growing that they're liking there so much. So as Amy's doing with our cows, if I get to a stage where the grass is creeping away from the pigs, I've got goats and a few sheep we could just chuck on or use neighbours' cattle to just keep the grass back a bit. Again, we got one sheep. One of James's sheep actually sat there, one of the naughtiest sheep I've ever seen, mingling away with the goats and piglets in the background. We also have an ancient woodland around us, and I've had talks with different organisations as whether I can put pigs in there or not, and I've been told I could potentially have trial plots to see what impact they have on there, and we've got a few corners with a lot of bracken. So I'm hoping later this year to put a few of the bigger sows in those sections and see what they do to the woodland, because I've seen people grazing cattle and sheep in woodland. I've seen good things, so I'm hoping I can do that with the pigs too. I think that's
Great, thanks, Flav. Thank you. That's brilliant. You said about buy pigs and get good fencing. What do you think would make good fencing? What fencing does keep your ginger ninjas in, if anything?
Currently, I found a lorry battery is much better than those little batteries they sell. So if you can get a lorry battery, that lasts over a month. You haven't got to worry about charging it. And also, I think when I work to commercial sows, we just use one strand. Don't do that with tamworths. Some of them hop over it. Some run underneath because somehow whatever's on the other side of the fence is worthwhile a tick. So they time the tick and just run under and go across. So I tend to have 2 strands for the naughty ones, and that seems to keep them in.
And what kind of zap do you try and have on that?
As hot as possible. If it can, well, I don't know, go buffalo strength, let's say.
Okay, all right. Good luck with that. That's great.
If you get the training right, then you can, like, I keep my sows behind 1 strand.
Okay,
you know,
nice.
you've just got to get the training right.
So what do you do for your training?
Basically, like, you need a solid fence behind, like a sort of outer electric fence, and then split that down the middle. so that if the pig runs through, it's not going to get very far. It doesn't matter, and then they're not going to be really far away and forget the fact that they've got shocked. They've got to go back through that to get to their mates. So it's in their mind. They're remembering what it is.
Yeah, great, thank you. So we're going to open to questions in a minute, but I just kind of like to ask all of you, maybe, we're talking about regenerative systems and regenerative pig systems, and you've all got fabulous systems. They're brilliant to hear. I'm sure we could all sit here all day and listen to them. But how would you kind of define regenerative farming in the frame of pigs? What makes the pig systems regenerative in your mind, at your systems, or if you see other systems that are claiming to be regenerative, what's the kind of edges of a regenerative system, do you find, if you can define a regenerative pig system? Are there words around that you have?
Well, I think I sort of tried to touch on it in my slides. Like, being regenerative means, thinking like you're part of the system rather than imposing yourself on it. And you can apply that to any enterprise on the farm. Whenever you're faced with a situation or a problem, you can think, oh, hang on a minute, yeah, there's the tech fix. But is there more of a systems thing? Is there something more difficult I can do? So that's what I would say, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that mentality, that way of thinking, that you're not imposing yourself on it, but you're observing it and tweaking and learning with it and taking that slow response. Great. Anyone else?
So the whole thing with regenerative is leaving something in a better condition than you found it, really, isn't it? So if you leave where the pigs have been in a better condition than when you found it. So the first slide where I had the pigs in summer, that used to be fairly just monoculture ryegrass, and with all those flowers, with all the extra diversity, well, I would say that's in a better condition. And then you obviously, with feeding extra feed, you then have to take that to the next level with pigs. You have to think about where that comes from. Are you sourcing that as regeneratively or sustainably as you can, as locally as possible?
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Flav. You got anything to add?
Yeah, I think for us, when we first moved on the farm and having a farm business consultant coming over and telling us suggesting what things we could do around the farm, and obviously with the compaction issue we had, the first suggestion was to get a subsoiler and chuck it through the fields. I said, what's a subsoiler? What does it do? Because I'm not an arable person at the best of times. And it told me it sort of breaks the soil to a point in the ground. And I'm like, well, why don't I do that whilst making pork? And I think for me, it's that way of farming where if I can use the animals to do the work whilst making produce, and if you got people visiting the farm, people learning about where their food comes from, like having the goats and the sheep, I don't want to get a hedge trimmer. The goats will do that for us. Anywhere the goats have been, it's about 6 foot high because they're just eating all the hawthorn or whatever, and it's in a controlled manner. Because if you get whatever hedge cutter you've got, it just obliterates it. Whereas the goats will go in, nibble quite picky is not a word, nibble in quite a picky manner.
We know what you mean,
then, and then just move on, and it grows back, and then they go back to it. So yeah, for me, that's what a regenerative bit of pig farming is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Integrating other stock as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Lovely. Let's open up to you, Lux. There's a couple of you out there. You might have a few questions. So we've got a roving mic. I've been told that the roving mic is a bit intermittent. We've got a hand up over there at the back. So if you as soon as you get the mic, if you speak into it quickly, then apparently it works. So we'll see how it goes. Go on. You can argue over it if you want. Or I think the beard had it just before you did, but it's up to you.
Check 1, 2. So you've mentioned when the pigs turn the ground over, you get a lot of weeds coming. Unwanted seeds coming up potentially on ryegrasses. Have you noticed them reducing things like rushes though by turning the ground over, reducing compaction? Probably all three of you really.
Okay, so the question was that although you might notice weeds come up, does it also reduce things like rushes and reduce compaction? Have they seen that? Has any of you seen that?
I put pigs in rushy areas. We get a lot of problem with fluke in our sheep. And so if you put the pigs in there, reduce the rushes, allow other things to grow up. You have to leave them in there a little while. I don't like leaving pigs in like brown, so I have to hold my nerve on that one. So, but they dig them up more, and there's much more grass coming through, and things like stinging nettles and thistles actually, you don't find that in a pig area because they love them.
Now you say that, actually, those first two paddocks that are full of weeds, I haven't seen any ragwort, and there was ragwort last year. And I think I've got a picture on my phone somewhere where the pigs were rooting around the ragwort and eating the root and just leaving the plant standing. And as I was going around pulling, you just find holes around the ragwort plant at the bottom, and they just left it. With regards to thistle and nettles, get goats. They'll smash through that.
Well, pigs do it too.
Nice. Okay. Anything? No. Good. Go on then. Go for you.
Really quickly, sorry. Amy, your silage, are you feeding a grass silage or a whole crop silage? And just another question about soy-free feed, also pastured pigs, no soy diet. Are any of you feeding a mineral or vitamin additive in with your mixes, and have any of you noticed any mineral deficiencies?
So the what?
Silage. Were you using silage?
So, yeah, it's just a grass silage. It's just so this is what I don't add any minerals or anything, and it wouldn't work without either silage or grass. That is the source. Then obviously they're getting all their like iron needs from the soil. They're getting all these things from being out in the pasture. It wouldn't work in a non-pasture-based setting.
Just about the diet. So the main component of our diet is the oats, peas, and barley intercrop. And one thing we have found is that too many oats in the diet can cause like a lifting of the fat and an oxidizing of the fat. I think probably because they're really monounsaturated. So we did have an issue with quality with too many oats, but we balanced that by with the wheat feed and some rye that we grow. And we top up the diet also with about 10% of fava beans, which we intercrop with our milling wheat crops. And that's it. Like, we use a company called B&W Feeds, which operate all over the south. Big advert for their B&W Feeds. A free T-shirt, maybe. We get B&W Feeds. They're great. They just rock up. I leave a trailer load of ingredients and maybe a couple of dumpy bags. They just suck it in the lorry and blow it straight in the silo every couple of weeks. It's really, really, really good system, but nothing else apart from those ingredients. It's so simple.
So, we use BMW too, so any BMW there, beanie, please. And again, back to my commercial history, I'm scared to go away from the supplements just yet, because where I'm dealing with pigs I've just bought from people, now we have about 6 that have been born on the farm. I can now see how they're getting on. But ours is wheat, barley, beans, and rapeseed meal extract with our finisher supplement. And because with pigs, you've got the limiting amino acid, which is lysine. They also need methionine and things like tryptophan and arginine and all that. I don't really want to be having 100 odd pigs with mineral deficiency. And where you've got a hog growth system waiting for pigs, you've got butchers waiting for pigs, or people you're supplying, yeah.
Interesting one. All of our pigs that are on pasture that have been born on the farm, no mineral deficiency showing. Pigs that we've just brought in from a non-pasture system are all, we just haven't the pig that's dying.
So for those at the back, the lady at the front was saying that I'm guessing you can't hear, that of your pigs, you've got adult pigs that have got mineral deficiencies, but the ones that have been born on the farm and raised on pasture aren't showing any of those mineral deficiencies. So that's really interesting of how they evolve into the system, isn't it?
I think genetics, breed for sure, and so like the Duroc, there's something not going right with that. And then even within the breed, the more you breed them, because I'm selecting the best ones through the generations, they're getting more efficient at converting the feed. It's the genetic component.
Talking of breeding, something I forgot to mention. So I'm not going to have pure either. Like, I know a lot of people, there are people that are quite keen on pure breeds. I'm not a pure breed. My son's not a pure breed, so I'm going to mix up. I'm going to go Tamworth. I recently AI'd with the red Duroc, which is a Canadian one, not the American one, which I think you should try. And whatever I get from that, I want to add another one to. I'm aiming for a 4-way cross, like Fred, because when you look at the commercial industry, people push for hybrid vigor. None of those composite terminal dam lines, they've all been crossed to hell. That's why a lot of them have numbers, not names, because it's not one breed. So yeah, I think we can learn a lot from the commercial side.
Just kind of jump in response to the feed. I mean, Amy, you made a great point in the presentation that some of the stuff we're saying is in the context of pasture being available and a lot of grazing. And yeah, so it's not just a case of sort of doing the maths and making a diet, it's the system. And 100%.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. We've got time probably for a couple more questions, and someone's got the mic, so go for it.
I've got the mic. I'm not sure it's working. No? Yep. Just a question on just following on you've been talking about stocking densities and the sort of recovery. I've heard you don't get your thistles and your docks back, but what about the seed bed? Does it regenerate as you would expect?
Does it regenerate as you'd expect? Were the last few words, I think. So is that the seed bed within the soil after the pigs have moved through with your stocking densities and the recovery period, whether those seeds are coming up? Well, Amy, you were adding a seed mix, weren't you? What's the seed mix that you were adding?
Well, there's about 30 seeds in there. So, it varies the time of year what comes up. But I mean, grass grows incredibly well after pigs have been in there. So it can swamp out what's going on. The areas that you want to put more seed are where the pigs have dug or where they've been around the water. But so for stocking densities, I kind of go by the rule of thumb. If it's just pigs in there, 10 pigs an acre through the summer, and then half that through the winter. But so now I'm trying to have more other animals in the field with them, so there's actually less pigs in the whole field. And then so you've still got that in winter. You can drop out the other animals, and you can still have then hopefully similar amount of pigs or just a few less.
Yeah, we have an even lower stocking density, but the principle's the same. Between April and October, you can really heavily stock, probably like in terms of live weight, like 500 kilos an acre plus. But in the winter, if in the summer and the grazing, we're say doing, 2, 3, 4 sows an acre. In the winter, we go down to less than a sow an acre. We go really extensive. But again, it's about the system and the management, not the numbers, because what is stocking rate without rest period? So between April and October, if you don't build in a rest period, then you don't get the seed return and the recovery during periods where they do a bit of damage, which is basically equates to a wet period. So the resilience of the lays really is dependent on the rest period, and I've tried to learn a lot and have a lot more to learn from like these mob grazing beef systems, but I think that the same principles can apply.
Great, thank you. Flav, did you want to add anything? No, good. Okay, we've got time for probably one more question. There's one down the front. Go on, Rich. Yeah, he's there. Oh, is there someone? Go on, Rich.
Hi, guys. It's really a thank you more than a question, I think, more than anything else. I went to a hookup at lunchtime as to how we can end our reliance on ultra-processed foods. I think, Fred, you talking about your enterprise stacking as well, your kind of little circular and very short supply chain there, building that local community, I think, there as well, customer base. Brilliant. I wasn't that great when I left that last session. I very much now am. So thank you very much indeed for that.
Thanks, Rich. Thank you. Great. So I just really want to thank you all for being here, because it's so lovely to see so many of you interested in pigs. There is on here a QR code, because we're very down with kids, and that can take you through to the Pastured Pig WhatsApp group. There's a number of you in here that are on that group already. So there's a number of these WhatsApp groups around that are like secret, you need a QR code to get in or a secret invitation. But they're so useful having these conversations, because these conversations can just carry on. They just roll around your pocket, basically, and you can hear the wisdom from, different farmers in there. So it's really, really useful. But I really just want to thank you three for sharing your system so openly and really being brave enough to do that Instagram versus reality stuff, because that's a lot to put that on. So yeah, thank the three of you very, very much. Thank you.